Thanks a million, Colin, for that. I presume everyone can see the slideshow. Sorry, I just can't see it on my screen at the moment. Thanks, Colin. Today I'm just going to go through in ex-Lloyd's and now McCabe's Pharmacy how we manage our dispensing errors and our near misses, and most particularly the introduction of a more, I would say, a more coherent program for managing our dispensing errors and ensure we have a timely response to them. As Colin said, I'm the superintendent for McCabe's Pharmacy. I was superintendent for the Lloyd's Pharmacy Group. And previous to that, I worked for 22 years with the HSE and Addiction Services in Dublin. So I'm going to look at this from the perspective of when this system was brought in, what it replaced, and what it's done for our organisation with regards ensuring that we have accurate, up-to-date information, and most importantly, that we have the information at hand for the development of seeing where errors are occurring, why errors are occurring, and where they're occurring most within our estate. So I'll talk a little bit about previous dispensing, the reason for our new system, how the system works, our current data, the types of errors we see, and how we do our corrective actions with regards our pharmacy teams and the responsibility of who needs to report the errors. So within our organisation, as already said earlier by Dr. Nick Donoghue, the responsibility of reporting errors is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the pharmacist's responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility to report errors. We have a timeline that when errors are brought to people's attention, that in our standard operating procedure, they have to report to the superintendent's office within 24 hours, and the superintendent then has to respond within 24 hours to that dispensing error. Sometimes our errors need to have an escalation profile. We have a full escalation profile of how we escalate errors. And what I mean by that is some errors we may have to escalate to legal, some errors, particularly data breaches, we escalate to our data protection officer. So there's an escalation process. And obviously, we also have a system in place where we escalate our errors to our European owner in Germany, particularly if there's any issue associated with particularly a hospitalization owing to a dispensing error. And obviously under the new regulations for open disclosure, if there's a death associated with any of our errors, we have modified our SOPs to reflect the need for that errors will be openly disclosed. Our current system is an internal system that we utilize. However, if a patient requests information, they are given information of our dispensing error system so that it is to hand for their information and availability. So previously we had an error dispensing reporting system, which was MS SharePoint. Our near misses were actually on pieces of paper, which were scanned into the office. So really technical when you think about it. These information pieces were collated, and every week our pharmacists would be, our teams would be notified of the near miss and the error. The reporting system was reported on SharePoint. A notification was received by myself via health mail, and then we also responded via email, sorry, not health mail, via email back our own internal email system. And we had a manual recording of errors in Excel spreadsheet, and everything was manualized. So everything was recorded manually, tracking of responses of the CAPA. So for example, if I sent out a CAPA corrective action, I would have to ensure that I put a tag on it that within a week, which we gave people a response time, that we had to email them back out again to remind them to please answer the error, that the corrective actions and that they had to carry out. And as you see, it was a very simple system. Who was involved, the area, the pharmacy involved, the date, who was on duty, and was it a locum agency pharmacist on duty, was it our own staff on duty, how many staff were on duty at the time. So it was very much based on an almost like a SharePoint Excel spreadsheet. Why we developed the new system was that the manual tracking of responses to errors became very burdensome, in the sense there was a huge amount of administrative work associated with keeping an eye on them, ensuring people responded and ensuring people responded appropriately, and also that any corrective actions were completely seen out, because sometimes you would have got partial response, you had to keep following up with emails to ensure you got the full manual full response. Also, because it was manually archived, it was difficult if somebody requested, could we please have oversight of the dispensing error, the corrective actions that were sent, and any responses back on that from the pharmacy and ourselves, if requested by, for example, by legal. It was also very difficult to track compliance because we had to search for response in a general email inbox. So it became quite challenging to find out if one of our pharmacies, of which we have 79 current and will go up to 110 by the beginning of December. So it became increasingly difficult just to find the pharmacy and to ensure that they'd responded appropriately. And to analyze became difficult because you're dealing with a PDF and trying to locate what was the rationale for the error, how to put the error into an appropriate system so that we knew this was a commonly occurring error, like sounds like, looks like drug, and it was a dosage error, it was a labeling error, it was a data breach. And also for patterns, because sometimes patterns exist, and that's the whole rationale for the 5 whys, like that sometimes you see patterns in certain pharmacies for certain errors occurring. And often it could be something as simple as the drugs too closely beside each other, where people pack something, it's too near another drug that gets confused all the time. Similar coloring packaging, as all of you know, in the world of pharmacy, some of the packaging is very similar for a variety of drugs across a variety of ranges. So sometimes the atorvastatin packaging is very similar to pantoprazole packaging, that they have similar coloring, similar kind of font. So there's less differentiation on the shelf. So, and often in a busy dispensary, you could accidentally just pick from a location in the pharmacy where you might have a medication that would be a fast-moving medication, and therefore it's stored in one side of them, and often not in alphabetical format, but more in what it does and its therapeutic indication. And also the other thing is that they're unable to attach photos, or sometimes we'd look at prescriptions to make sure that was it an interpretive error, particularly in handwriting, or was it something else that needs to be seen. We often ask our pharmacists, was it because of the way of your pharmacy dispensary set up as to why the error occurred? So there was a lot of other issues that we weren't able to see or analyze going forward. So with that in mind, we came across this organization called Safety Culture Application. They have 1 billion checks completed per year using Safety Culture across the world. So it's a worldwide organization. It's a global technology company that empowers working teams to drive daily improvements across the organization. So it's a really fantastic system for improving quality management. And it's a mobile first operations platform which gives knowledge, tools, and processes to work safely, meeting higher standards, improve every day. So they also have inbuilt in the background educational applications, so that if an error occurred, you can actually cite people to go off and do a review of a part of maybe a CPD, or just go through a session of how to organize the pharmacy. And there were 75,000 other organizations using the platform in over 180 countries around the world. So we're seen as a very robust choice of partners to go into partnership with to see how it worked and whether it would work for our system. The beauty of the collaboration was that we got essentially a bespoke build for ourselves. And when I say bespoke, was very much based on what we currently had with regards to how we do our dispensing errors, the formatting. So it was easy for our pharmacists and our colleagues in our pharmacies to see that things hadn't changed from the old system. So it was essentially templated on. So there was very little training required for our pharmacists around this. We launched it only in April this year, and the template is accessible by everyone, not only company administrators, our legal team, regional managers, so everyone can have access to it. And in actual fact, when you're doing responses, you can tag people to the response. So for example, if I wanted our head of legal to see a response because maybe there was an issue with regards, or our DPO with regards to an issue of a data breach, I can tag them onto my response, so they will get a notification that a response has been sent, so they know that we're within the timelines for data protection issues. Questions on the template can be text answer, an MCQ, they can be scored, they can be optional or required, and it's also flagged to allow gathering of data. So what I mean by that is that we have a dashboard where if we flag certain items, the dashboard will collate the information for us that we can share out to the organization to see where we're doing well, where we need to do better, what common mistakes are occurring, and how we can mitigate against those mistakes occurring going into the future for other parts of the estate. So this is essentially what it looks like. It's very simple. There's a pharmacy name, you provide details on the error, you tick box that you've completed it completely, you have to sign to say you've done it. You also have to list who is on duty, the PSI registration of the pharmacist on duty, and other notifications. Have you told your regional manager? Have you told head of legal? Is it a data breach? Is it not a data breach? Can you describe the type of error? And there's all these drop-down boxes that you can choose the type of error, be that a sounds alike, looks alike dispensing error. It could also be something like a dosage interpretation of a script, incorrect entry of a script into the wrong PMR because it was a similar sounding person. So Denis O'Driscoll from 1 Main Street instead of Denis O'Driscoll from 4 Main Street. So we have all these on the drop down menu. So we try and keep it as tight as possible for analysis purposes, that we're able to then decipher into the data in order to get out the reports that are needed for the organization. So the reports are accessible and can be searched, as I said, by a date range, pharmacy, and we have our pharmacies based out into 4 different regions across the country. So we can also see the various regions and where errors are occurring and where they're occurring more frequently. Obviously, areas where there's a high density of our pharmacies, we obviously will have a higher rate of error reporting. And by type of error. I should also say that we have our standard operating procedure is that error reporting is seen as a very positive piece. It's seen as it's never used as a piece for a reprimand or any issue like that with either the pharmacist or those reporting it. It's seen as a learning in order to improve the system, improving quality across the system. We don't use it as a disciplinary matter in any way. The reports can also be downloaded in a Word doc or as a PDF. So, for example, if there's a locum on duty, the locum will get a copy of the PDF for them to carry out the corrective actions whilst for the error that occurs whilst they were on duty. And that's sent off to the locum agency for them to ensure that they've completed that that report and seen the error and also the corrective actions that are expected by the organisation. We can, and the patient data is redacted on the information before it's shared out across another network, for example, to the locum agency. So we can actually modify this the Word document that we can download in order that patient data can be removed, sensitive patient data can be removed as appropriate. We also can assign our actions depending on priorities. So this low, medium, and high. A low priority action has a response time of 14 days. A medium priority is 7 days, and a high priority is within 48 hours. So we can actually highlight. So, for example, I can send out corrective action that, can you please send a copy of the prescription for review, and I can hit that as a high priority. And within 20 that, if it's not acted on in 48 hours, what will happen is that the system automatically will resend that again to the pharmacist and to the pharmacy team saying, you have an action outstanding, can you please ensure that you send on the information as required to the superintendent's office. And we also can tag our actions for quick classification, and we also have an analytics function for the creation of graphs, Excel, etc., etc. So it makes it really easy for us to pull data as required. So people can ask questions like, how many sounds alike, looks alike dispensing errors have you had? How many have been associated with one particular drug? Have they been associated with one particular pharmacy? And then if we find that there's that pattern in a pharmacy, we'll actually, in our inspection, when we go out and do our inspection as from the superintendent's office, we'll ensure that we look at modification to maybe where medication is stored, how they do a process within the pharmacy in order that the error does not reoccur within the pharmacy. So if you look, this is what it looks like. So there's a to-do, in progress, complete, and can't do. So that's what the pharmacist can tag back to us, so they can let us know, or the team, that it's in progress, they've completed it, or they can't do. Something that they can't do might be something as simple as, it might be that they had an issue with IT system, so they actually, it's beyond their control. But what they can do is send off a request to our IT system providers in order to change that to status to complete. So essentially, that's what it looks like when it goes out to the pharmacy, that you have this priority level, the date, we can assign it, as I said, to whoever is appropriate and whoever has access to the Safety Culture app. The store is the pharmacy name, the asset is the pharmacy itself, and we can add labels, and those labels will depend on making it high, medium, or low priority. So since this was brought in, we've had 290 DERS reports since April 2024. As you can see, some regions have higher reporting than others. Region 2 and Region 1 would be the Dublin region predominantly, so that would be Dublin, Wicklow and Kildare. So obviously we would have higher ratings in those. Region 4 would be the counties outside of Dublin, up to Donegal and Sligo. And then Region 3 would be the south of the country, so that'd be Cork, Kerry, Tipperary, Clare, Waterford. So if you're to slice the country across that way. So you can see that we have less, obviously, pharmacies in each locations. Around, we have, as I said, 79 pharmacies, with 60% of our pharmacies based in Region 1 and Region 2. So hence you'll have always a higher rate of reporting. From my perspective, superintendent, I like to see DERS reports coming in, because it shows that people are monitoring their practice. What bothers me more is actually if I don't see a DERS report coming from a pharmacy, I'll actually make direct contact with the pharmacy myself and ask, why isn't there an error reported? Is there no errors occurring? Is there a rationale for it? Out of those, we have had 1,361 actions assigned. Usually about 5 per DERS are the actions assigned. The majority are completed. Some are uncompleted because of other issues beyond the control in the pharmacy. And what we find as well is that when you lose lack of consistency of pharmacists in a pharmacy, often actions are missed, and you have to go back and remind people to redo those actions, because what keeps happening is the system.
Denis, I'm sorry we can't hear you at present.
Before going forward and discuss at the dispensary meeting the importance of scrutiny of the script, so the error does not reoccur. We've had 27 data breaches, which is 9.3% of our total data, of our total errors reported. And again, usual is similar names, and what I say not following SOP is the provision of a script at the counter to a patient, saying the name and address, and somebody just walking up to you and saying, yeah, that's me, and it turns out it's not them. So we have then redesigned training modules and redesigned SOPs for those colleagues to reread and understand those again before they undertake to deal with prescriptions and the public again. Other things are incorrect PMR chosen and incorrect receipt handed to the patient, which will have patient data on it along with patient address. So it is a data breach. So across our pharmacies, you can see here that there's a completed individual pharmacies, that there's complete in the majority of pharmacies, minor incompletions across the zones. And in those areas where the incompletions are, has been a change in the pharmacist on, who goes to that pharmacy. This error report will keep coming in until the pharmacist responds. So what happens is that as we note these going forward, we ask pharmacists to review them and remove them off the system. Otherwise, they'll become almost like an irritation, because they'll keep reminding to finish off the error. So the most frequent type of error that has been seen in across research has been incorrect drug, incorrect concentrations or quantities, which were done in recent evaluations of standardized safety programs and recent research. And for us, this is how we've typified our errors across the system. So from our perspective, we look at right drug, wrong strength, salads, prescription, incorrect health mail prescription dispensed, whether it was a controlled drug, methotrexate. So we list all these and they have to tag these when they're sending back the error report to us. As the error reporting, 290.337, I apologize, the 337 was the most recent one, so it came up like from a recent data. So I only did this at the end of September for part of the presentation. So these are additional errors since the end of September. You can see that without fail, right drug, wrong strength is the highest across our network, followed closely by labeling and prescription assessment, and sounds alike, looks like drug. So you can see that for us, it's the right drug, wrong strength. The usual right drug, wrong strength, so people are aware, are atorvastatin, rosuvastatin, lercanidipine, tend to be the drugs that seem to be the most commonly mistaken strength picking exercise for our pharmacists.
Sorry, Denis, we're kind of running out of time. If you don't mind wrapping up at this stage.
Okay,
please.
yeah. So just so people are aware that across the network, we would have an error reporting rate of less than 0.1% compared to the amount of product dispensed, which compares very favorably with some of the international data that was taken in the Canadian model of about 1.6%. And on that, any questions? And thank you.
Thank you, Denis. I think there are no questions in the chat. I had a question myself. I was just wondering, are these the DERs more frequent at any particular time of the day or the week? Or, for example, if the regular pharmacist is on leave and there's a locum in place, does that affect it?
So what we actually, the analysis on the time of the day is something that we're looking at the moment, see if we can actually determine that, because sometimes the reports come in maybe a day later or later on that evening, and they don't necessarily give the accurate time of it. So it occurs usually when there's a changeover in staff, is what we found. To say that there's an increase in rates when locums are on would not be really fair. When locums are on, it would appear that there's certainly a higher level of reporting when there's a locum on duty. But then, if I'm really honest about that, is that because they're only reporting on the locum, or and not on themselves? So it's really hard to determine that. So I wouldn't say it's higher or lower. What bothers me most, if I'm honest with you, is if I don't get a DERS or a report from any pharmacy either. That strikes me as odd. So I'll always do an investigation when I don't get any DERS report from a pharmacy.
Okay, thank you, Denis.